What a test match we've had at Sydney. India fighting and battling hard, and Australia coming really hard at them on the final day. Rishabh Pant and Cheteshwar Pujara giving them a glimmer of hope. And before Hanuma Vihari and R. Ashwin battling it out. It was proper test cricket. And there are a lot of people here in India who say that this was probably a better result than the one in Melbourne because they enjoyed it. It was proper test cricket. It had everything. India showed a lot of guts, a lot of grit. And you felt for the longest time that Australia will win through the test match, but it was India who just held on. And it's quite a turnaround since that 36 all out. And to put things into context, India don't have a lot of their frontline players, but still they've managed to do this. And yes, Steven Smith is back in form. I think that too was a highlight at Sydney. Joining me today is Sachin Bajaj from the Global Cricket School. Remember that this video is brought to you and presented to you by the Global Cricket School. And all the way from Sydney, we've got former Australia fast bowler Geoff Lawson. Jeff, हिंदी में शुरू करते हैं. आप कैसे हैं?
बहुत अच्छा. ठीक है.
Good to know. Jeff, your preliminary thoughts about the Sydney Test?
Well, I agree. It was a brilliant test match. And those people who don't fully understand test cricket will say, well, it was a draw and there was no result, but there was a result. It was a fabulous last day. Well, it was actually a really great 5 days. Classic test match cricket. Australia looked like the favourites at stumps on day 4, but India fought hard. Lots of controversies along the way, lots of discussions about tactics and injuries and courageous displays, great defence, Australia battling on. This test match had everything apart from maybe a last over result. I was very happy with India having a draw, but it would have been lovely if it had been 9 down in the last over. That's about the only thing this test match didn't have was actually that absolute nail biter into the last over, but a classic test match in so many ways.
And Sachin, bringing you in because you've been with me since Adelaide, and what a turnaround. Can you tell us, in context of all the cricket that you've seen, where does this rank for you in terms of an Indian escape?
Very heartwarming. I still remember the test match back in Australia. I think the same test match where Sandeep Patil had got his 170. We survived, I think, the last 2 overs of Len Pascoe coming in 7 or 8 wickets down, and we held on to that. I still remember that game. And you remember a few years back, I think Michael Clarke got 2 or 3 wickets, and that was about 6 balls to spare or 7 balls to spare or something. We lost that test match. So there's been a couple of close ones, but we played well. We are a wounded army right now, and everyone says a lot of things. I reckon it's a very sporting declaration by Australia to set us 407 with about 120 overs to go. That really threw open this game, or this would have just meandered to a nominal draw. They reckon they could get us out, and I reckon their thinking might have been, if we give them something to chase, we might get the wickets if they go for the runs. And I think that was a big factor, the sporting declaration, or sporting might not be the right word, fighting declaration would be the right word, that set this game up beautifully. And the one thing, it's the grit and determination with which we played. I think Vihari scored a very important 15 runs. He's like a wounded soldier with his hamstring. It's been fantastic. See, credit in our camp must definitely go to Ravi Shastri and Vikram Rathore. Obviously, and the Bombay think tank of Rahane and Sharma. There's, the inspired change in batting order, sending Pant above Vihari, set the game up for us. But I'll tell you what Vikram Rathore has done is, got a lot of grit into our batting. He and Shastri would be working on a plan. Shastri's always been a very tactical coach where he's someone, as I've always said, who's played way above his ability. He would have, really he would have had a word with these guys, motivated them, and Vikram's done a lot of good technical work with our emerging players over the years. He's been a tough cricketer himself, led Punjab to a Ranji Trophy back in the day. He's done a lot of good work, I reckon, with the batters, and I think we are all set for a great game at the Gabba. We've never won there, but we'll come to that one later. But I reckon it's anybody's series right now.
Yes, that's right. And Geoff, what are your thoughts on Australia's declaration? I think that Sachin is quite right that it did set up, and although there wasn't as such anything in the pitch to help the bowlers.
Yeah, look, the declaration was set to try and force a result. It wasn't set to be a draw. Australia could have batted for another 20 overs and put the game really outside India's reach. But, Payne thought he wanted to win. The series was 1-1. Australia have to win the series to reclaim the Border Gavaskar Trophy. So there's a big incentive. They've also got the World Test Championships. You need to win at home to stay on the top two of that. And this was, well, it was 2 versus 3 because New Zealand had jumped to the top of the pile. So there was lots of reasons to try and get a result. And, the declaration, well, it favoured Australia. India had to bat last on an SCG pitch that normally takes turn, but the pitch held up pretty well. So it gave both sides a chance to win. And it stumps at day 4, start of day 5. India only needed 300 all day with 8 wickets in hand. So the game was still very much alive. And I think it was genius tactically to put Pant in early because, he took the game to the Aussies. And if he batted for another, 10, 15 overs, India may have won the game. So that was really wonderful last morning Test match cricket with Pant playing his shots, Australia trying to keep the field up, and eventually Pant got out playing an attacking shot. So that was pretty good cricket. And there was interest. I know in Australia people were tuning in all afternoon because the game got very tight and exciting, and a lot of people were engrossed in the game. And that was a part of that declaration. Payne, well, he obviously thought he had the bowlers to do the job. He's got a great attack, but the pitch didn't quite spin as much as perhaps it often does in Sydney. There was lots of grass on the pitch to hold it together. The footmarks weren't very big. And perhaps in the end, Payne under-bowled someone like Marnus Lavascagne, whose part-time leg spinners are quite good. And often leg spin is the way to go late in Sydney. It's not necessarily the finger spinners that do the job. So that was a factor, I think. I think Australia missed out there tactically. But also India were handicapped with the injuries, particularly knowing that Jadeja was going to struggle to bat, even though he was padded up to come in next. So he's another guy like Pant who could win you the Test match. And then Bahari doing the hamstring, that changed the whole tenor of the game. But without those injuries, I think we would have had an absolute thriller. India would have attacked more, maybe lost more wickets, and therefore the game would have gone right down to the wire. So there was lots of factors. I say the declaration was a part of it, but all the other things that happened, the injuries and the bowling and the drop catches, and it had all those elements that make Test cricket the absorbing contest that it is.
Absolutely.
And we have a question for you.
Yes, Sach.
Do you think the rain before the Sydney Test helped the wicket to be less dry and hence turn less on the last 2 days?
Yeah, it probably was a factor. And I think I said that in our preview that the weather had been very, very wet in Sydney and not very hot either. We had lots of overcast days. We were in a weather system called La Nina where we get cooler, wetter summers. We don't have one very often, about every 10 years. Normally, this time last year, the place was enveloped in bushfire smoke, so it was a very different environment. But there was much more grass on the pitch. In the first couple of days where we had the rain interruptions, that certainly stopped that pitch from drying out completely. So more grass, more moisture in the air through the rain. A factor for sure. But we did have some really bright sunny days the last 3 days. The pitch started to dry out and there was a little bit of turn there, but not quite the stuff you want on day 5. But, Australia still had their opportunity to win the game. If they had taken their chances, I think they probably would have won. But they weren't given multiple chances too often. And, certainly someone like Bahari showed incredible discipline to bat through and not chase wide balls and not play loose shots. So it's a combination of all those factors, but certainly the pitch to me didn't quite spin as much as everybody thought it would do on day 5.
Now, although we've had a great Test match, there is a lot of talk about the chatter, especially from the Australian captain Tim Payne, and it hasn't reflected well, but it's good on him that he has come out and he's apologized in the media. So at the moment, won't it be right to just sort of forget it and move on and just focus on the next Test match?
Yeah, look, I think Tim's heartfelt apology this morning was taken well by everybody, and his behaviour was really out of character. I mean, and since Sandpaper Gate back in South Africa, he has been the main guy who's got Australia back on track, and his leadership and behaviour has been exemplary. So it was definitely out of character. I mean, even questioning the umpire's decision, he got into trouble for that. That's something he just hasn't done. And then that chat behind the stumps, which was, quite infantile, to be honest, that hasn't been Payne at all. I mean, the Australian team generally been a lot quieter, and the chat's been, good cricket banter rather than anything else. So it was very much out of character. Payne has come out this morning and admitted it, and he's done a mea culpa, and hopefully people will take that all on board, and we'll have a great last test match. We don't want all this other peripheral stuff hanging around the cricket that's being played. So yeah, no good Payne's behaviour, but good on him for the full apology this morning.
Absolutely. And Sachin, the other question that I had for you was Stephen Smith. I think a lot is being made out of him going and rubbing his spikes on the guard, which I felt was probably him just following the motions and possibly shadow batting as he loves to. And I think people were just reading into it too much, because I think there was no matter there. Pant just came and took fresh guard again. So I think it was just blown out of proportion.
See, we live in an era where things are blown out of proportion. Anyway, it's a very heated series in terms of both teams are very well matched, both trying to win. I think everyone's focus right now is to go and win a test match in Vegas or Brisbane, as they call Brisbane. And I think we should put that into perspective. I think Booney is a very fair match referee. If anything has to be done, he will take care of it. And let's move on and let's focus on a great 5 days of test cricket ahead. Yeah, that's all I would say.
Geoff, they're heading up to Brisbane. Finally, the test match is happening there after a lot of uncertainty. From a fast bowler's perspective, love to be at Brisbane, isn't it?
Yeah, great place to play. I made my test debut at Brisbane, so I really like playing up there. Always good bounce and carry. The Brisbane pitch at the Gabba is more consistent, I think, than any other pitch in Australia. You always know what you're going to get up there. It's also a pitch where the spinners do quite well. It's Shane Warne's best ground in Australia, averaging less than 20 a wicket, and he enjoyed the quickness of the spin, but also the fact that his flipper and his slider will get onto people a lot quicker. That's why India will miss someone like Jadeja, who's got a terrific arm ball, not a big spinner of the ball, but bounce and definite skills that work there. I think Ashwin will be a real challenge. The Australians really haven't worked out how to play Ashwin that well, and particularly Smith and Labuschagne, who did well in Sydney on a very slow pitch, but they'll have another challenge with Ashwin. India would like all their first line fast bowlers to be ready, and I hope Bumrah had a little bit of a niggle in Sydney. Hopefully he's right to play, and Siraj and Saini look pretty good. I think they'll bowl well there because they bowl a good length. You've got to pitch the ball up in Brisbane. Don't get carried away by the bounce and the ball flying over the shoulders. You've got to pitch the ball up. The Aussies will be very good at that, at bowling a length. And I think even Nathan Lyon doesn't mind bowling at Brisbane because the extra bounce, and he'll threaten the outside edge more than the inside edge. So it's a different game, different pitch. That's what we love about our Test cricket. If you ask me who's the favourite going into Brisbane, I'm going to say Australia just by a fraction, just because they're playing at home, and India need to get their batting line up. I gather Vihari won't play unless he has a miracle recovery from the hamstring, which you normally don't get over hamstring injuries quickly. So they need to sort their batting line out, and they'll miss Jadeja as an all-rounder. So they're a little low on troops. So that's why I think Australia will just start the slight favourites. And the Aussies haven't lost at Brisbane, I think, since 1988. And that's when I was playing against the West Indies. So we didn't mind losing the West Indies on that pitch, but they got a pretty good record at Brisbane, and I think they'll start a little bit as the favourites. So India will certainly be their spirits will be buoyed by what they did in Sydney. It's when you have a draw like that, it's almost like having a win.
Absolutely. And Sachin, talking about wins, India have never won in Brisbane. They've come close on 2 occasions, once in 67-68 when Nawab of Pataudi's team lost by some 39 or 40 runs. Then 10 years later when Bob Simpson came out of retirement during the whole Packer problem, India lost that test match by 16 runs, and Sunil Gavaskar had got a century in the second innings. 2003, we remember Saurav Ganguly getting that great fighting 100, and drawing a game which sort of set the tone for the series. Your thoughts going into Brisbane from an Indian perspective and not having won there so far?
Well, we've got to try and change that in this upcoming match. I think India will go very hard at it. I reckon we'd have a couple of changes. I mean, I'd go with Kuldeep Yadav, bowls a bit of Chinaman. What's Freddie's son's name? Our other Freedman,
David
Junior
Friedman.
David Friedman. I love Brian, so Brian comes first to mind. So Junior Freddie, kind of bowler, and he's pretty useful with the bat. So I reckon it would be a straight swap between two of them. Maybe Shardul for Saini could be another change in the bowling, and it would be interesting to see if Saha comes in as a keeper that Pant can play as a batter, because our options with fitness are pretty thin right now.
Right. And finally, to wrap it up, I know Geoff has already said Australia are favourites by possibly the slightest margin. And even I agree because of the fact that they are playing at Brisbane. But Sachin, what about you?
With this Indian team, anything's possible. Yes, Australia are favourites, but with Ravi Shastri, Vikram Rathore, Rohit Sharma, Ajinkya Rahane, Indian team dominated by this think tank, I think we'll be very competitive. And I think we're about to upset the apple cart. I'd go 51-49 India this time.
So from 50-49, we've come to 51-49.
Yeah, because we're taking the momentum into the Test match. Though we're a wounded army, we're still taking momentum with us. This draw, as Henry said, this draw was like a win.
Yes, and Geoff, where do you think that 1% went? The last time Sachin was saying 48.
Yeah, he's doing a bit of fence sitting there. I mean, what really
1% momentum
is, Australia, great record at Brisbane. Really, I mean, that one loss in '88. Before that, we've got to go back to 71 or something like that. So they've hardly lost at Brisbane ever. And India have got those wounded troops. No Vihari, no Jadeja. That's a big loss for them. So yes, momentum after the draw. They'll be feeling really good about themselves and where they're at, but they've got some obstacles to overcome. Having said that, just as Sachin said, this Indian team is capable of anything, and I certainly wouldn't put it past them. Just all those factors just bring Australia out in front.
Perfect. Thank you so much, gentlemen. This has been really fun. We've got a short turnaround time between the Sydney test and the Brisbane test, and it's been really fascinating to have this discussion talking about Sydney and then bringing Brisbane into perspective. So let's hope for a good test match. And once again, thank you so much. Take care. Stay safe.